Full disclosure, I did not go to culinary school. I am actually a computer engineer who later did her MBA in marketing and now works in a consulting firm. I'm basically Suhas from Three Idiots. So, what gives me the authority to tell you how to make a perfect cake every single time? Well, what the students in culinary school are taught in 2 years and the knowledge that they are given on a silver platter, I learned through multiple years of making mistakes. And by mistakes, I mean the most basic mistake that you can think of, to the cake almost exploding in my oven. Yeah, that was not a good day. What I'm trying to say is I have done a lot of trial and error and learned from it. Most of my learning I have done from YouTube, trying different chefs' recipes, tweaking them here and there on my own. Later in years, I started reading technical baking books. Technical baking books are very difficult to understand if you don't understand the basics of it. So what YouTube has is a lot of specific recipes. A specific vanilla cake, chocolate cake, devil's food cake, banana cake, etc. I wanted to learn was how the basics worked, how the technicality worked, and how the chemistry worked, so that I could create my own recipes, become a recipe developer, because I did not want to steal someone else's recipe. I wanted to create my own combination of recipes, try out flavors together that complement each other, and then make my own custom desserts, which I did in this video. A brownie, tiramisu, tres leches, 3 desserts combined in one. But to create such monstrosities, delicious monstrosities, you need to understand the basics of it. So that's what I'm creating. I'm creating this basics series called Learn From My Mistakes, and in this episode I'm going to tell you the very basics of cake creation, the chemistry, understanding of each and every component and ingredient, and how the cake formula works. And you don't have to worry about the recipes being egg and you wanting egg replacements. I am going to cover egg substitutes at the end of the video, so definitely keep watching. So a cake is divided into 2 technicalities. One is called a high ratio cake and the other is called a low ratio cake. A high ratio cake, the quantity of sugar is more than flour, and in a low ratio cake, the quantity of sugar is less than flour. That is all you need to remember for now. Now we'll take a quick look at the ingredients and I will tell you a few technical points about each ingredient, and then we can head on to the cake formula. First is flour. Flour is what gives structure to the cake. When you mix flour and water and mix it rigorously, we get what is called gluten. Gluten is what we have in our chapatis, rotis and breads. A roti or a bread is really chewy, right? So that chewy thing is gluten. And for a cake to be really fluffy, soft and moist, it needs to have as minimum gluten as possible. So the cakes usually made in bakeries are high ratio cakes, and the flour that they use in bakeries is what is called a cake flour. A cake flour is a more processed version of all-purpose flour, where it is bleached so that it is whiter than our all-purpose flour, and it is chlorinated so it inhibits gluten formation. That's why bakery cakes are softer and fluffier than what we make at home. There are also different kinds of flours. They are all used for different desserts. So cake flour is not easily available in the supermarket, and if you're just starting out and are a home baker like I am, what you can do is substitute 5 to 10% of your all-purpose flour or maida with cornstarch. That will give you a similar substitute to cake flour. So next is fat, so either oil or butter. When you whisk room temperature butter with caster sugar, it really increases in volume, becomes light and fluffy, and what is happening is air is getting trapped between the molecules of butter and sugar. This increased volume is what gives volume to your final cake. Usually oil and butter are used in different kind of recipe. Butter is usually used in subtle flavors like vanilla, lemon, blueberry, where butter almost acts as a secondary flavor. Whereas oil is used in recipes that have really strong flavors like chocolate, pumpkin, banana. So if you are in a process of recipe development and want to switch out oil for butter, you cannot switch it out in 1-to-1 measurement. Because butter has 80% fat and 20% water, for example, if you want to switch out 120 grams of oil to butter, you will need to divide 120 by 0.8, which is the fat percentage. Next ingredient is eggs. Eggs is what provides moisture and structure to the cake. After you've whisked the butter and the sugar together, you need to add eggs one by one and then whisk it rigorously. This whisking provides aeration to the batter. This aeration created by whisking the eggs is what gives volume and structure to the cake. Eggs have a compound called lectin, and that helps in emulsifying the cake. That means the batter becomes really soft and smooth without any lumps. And eggs have a distinct flavor, so just like butter, they also act as a secondary flavor. Next is leavening agents. First is mechanical leavening. Like I mentioned before, the whisking of the eggs and the butter and sugar is what provides aeration, and that gives leavening. Next is chemical leavening or baking powder. Baking powder has a mixture of acid and base, and when you mix it with water, it releases CO2 gas. This release of CO2 gas helps the cake expand and get that volume and structure. In case you want to scale up a recipe, that means double a recipe, you cannot just double the amount of baking powder. Smaller the quantity of cake, larger the amount of baking powder it is going to require. Because large quantities of cake are baked at a lower temperature for a higher time, if you increase the baking powder in the same percentage, the baking powder will release CO2 very quickly, and then after all the CO2 has been released, it will not have any leavening agents left in it for it to rise. The cakes will not develop any structure or volume with no fluffiness, no crumb and no tenderness. One other thing that baking powder does is that it gives fluidity to your batter. So when you're doing your bench operations, the baking powder first releases a part of the CO2. This part of CO2 released is what gives fluidity to the cake, and this gives you an idea about the proportion of the batter so that you can select a proportionate mold according to quantity of your batter. Richer cakes, meaning cakes that have higher fat and eggs, will require lesser baking powder, and leaner cakes that have less fat in it will require more baking powder. One thing you remember when you're using baking powder is that after you have mixed your dry and wet ingredients and put the batter in the mold, do not let the cake batter sit idle at room temperature. Just immediately put it in the oven. If you let the cake batter sit idle, eventually all the baking powder will release all the carbon dioxide. It will not have any leavening CO2 left, and your cake will not rise. A quick difference between baking soda and baking powder. Baking powder is a combination of acid and base and only requires water or liquid for it to release the CO2 gas. Whereas baking soda is alkaline in nature, that means it requires something acidic for it to react with to release those CO2 gases. Cocoa powder is also acidic in nature. So if you're making a chocolate cake, always remember to add baking soda with your cocoa powder. Cocoa powder needs baking soda to react with it to create that CO2 gas and also to give that chocolatiness and that dark chocolate color. Next ingredient is sugar. Sugar is also a tenderizer and of course gives sweetness. Sugar is also hygroscopic, which means it holds on to water, and that is what makes the cakes tender and moist. Sugar is also what gives that golden caramelly color. When I had just started baking, I used to use powdered sugar. I would just take the regular granulated sugar that we have at home, put it in a mixer blender and grind it until it becomes a fine powder. That sugar at that time yielded decent results, but now after learning the technicalities of it, I realized that powdered sugar and butter when creamed together does not give as much aeration as caster sugar and butter will give. Next, and probably the most important, is the flavors. Whenever you're adding any kind of flavor in any form, be it powder or liquid, remember that it should not hinder the chemical processes that goes on when you mix all the other ingredients. So the mistake that I used to make was use really bad quality cocoa powder and really cheap quality vanilla essence. A cheap quality essence you will need to use in really high amounts. So one mistake I made as early as last week for Valentine's Day, and this tells you that I'm still learning, that I'm not a pro, that I still make mistakes. I wanted to make a strawberry white chocolate cake. What I forgot was that strawberries are 80 to 90% water, and if you add big chunks of strawberries in a cake, the part of the cake which has that strawberry will be really gooey and watery in texture. So the first recipe development of that cake, the cake was really horrible in texture. This is why you need to remember that adding flavor should not hinder the chemical processes that happens between all the other ingredients. The next important ingredient is milk. Milk is usually added at the very end of the cake making process. It also helps in giving moisture to the cake. Usually when we are adding dry ingredients to the wet ones, we add milk in between them. So the order for it is dry ingredients, milk, dry ingredients, milk, dry ingredient. This order is very important. You always need to end with the dry ingredients, and milk is added in between adding dry ingredients so that the gluten formation is inhibited. Before we move on to the cake formula, here are some quick tips that you always need to remember while you're baking a cake. Always have all the ingredients at room temperature. One mistake that I used to make was that my eggs used to be cold straight out of the fridge, and when I would whip up the eggs one by one with the butter and sugar, the batter would completely curdle. So if you're making an egg-based cake, always make sure all the ingredients and especially your eggs are at room temperature. Baking temperatures will differ from dessert to dessert, but always remember to preheat your oven. Always grease your cake pans. Do not excessively grease it, otherwise your cake will get shallow fried from the bottom and you will get a really crispy bottom. Quantity of your cake batter should be proportional to that of your cake mold. If the cake mold is too small, the cake will get overcooked and it will be chewy and dense. If the cake mold is too big, it will not rise and it will be really thin and crispy. Always fill the cake mold up to 2/3 of the way. Give it a little bit space for it to rise. Always let the cake cool down completely before you're going to demold it. Before you're going to place the cake in the oven, tap it slightly 2 to 3 times so that whatever air is trapped while you're transferring the batter into it gets escaped. Lean cakes will require a little bit more liquid for them to have the soft moistness, and higher the liquid, you'll also need to increase the baking powder a little bit. Similarly, richer cakes will not require as much liquid for them to get that nice texture, and hence the baking powder will be similarly a little low. Usually most of the cakes are baked anywhere between 165 to 180 degrees Celsius. In case you're making a very small quantity of cake in a very huge oven, there's a possibility that your cake might not get cooked properly. It will be unevenly baked and it might even burn in some spots. A trick to manage that is to place some water in a bowl in the oven. As the water heats up, the water vapor will absorb all of the excessive heat, and that will help the small quantity of cake to cook properly. Now that we've looked at all the ingredients and understood how they work in the cake making process, we need to understand that there's a specific measurement in which all these ingredients need to be added. You can't just add a little bit of this, a little bit of that, adjust as you go and expect a good cake. So for a high ratio cake, a cake that is more in sugar than flour, needs to have higher amounts of liquid for the sugar to actually work and do its processes. For a high ratio cake, the total amount of liquids, that is, total amount of egg plus total amount of milk, should be equal to sugar plus 25. 25 is an arbitrary number that helps in adjusting this equation to give that really good textured, flavored, pleasant looking cake. For a low ratio cake, the total amount of liquids, which is total amount of egg plus milk, should be equal to the sugar. For a low ratio cake, the sugar should be 80 to 90% of the flour. Eggs should always be higher than the fat by 10%. If the fat is higher than the eggs, then the cake won't get emulsified and you will really have a curdled, not smooth batter. Fat should always be lesser than sugar. So from 50 to 70% depending upon what kind of cake you're making. Leavening agent should be 1.5 to 3% of the flour, and salt should be 0.8 to 2% of the sugar. The sugar is increased, the eggs need to be increased in the same percentage. Now for the egg replacements, there are multiple egg replacements available and I use different of those for different recipes. And specifically for cakes, I use dahi. Dahi, I've realized, is what gives the fluffiest and the softest cake, which can be made either as tea cakes or even as layer cakes. And for 1 egg, I use a 1/4 cup of dahi. These percentages are not set in stone. You still have to tweak them a little bit according to your preferences, but this will give you a good baseline to start learning how to make a very basic cake, and then you can start building upon that. So soft, oh my god. You can also use these percentages to make cupcakes and tweak them a little bit, tweak the temperatures a little bit to get a good output. Muffins are completely different from cupcakes. You might get decent results, but muffins need a little more enrichment and complete 2 different temperatures to cook, just so you can get that super high top. If you want to learn more about basics of baking, about how to operate an oven, how to use different baking instruments like spatula, whisk, electric whisk and everything else, that video is linked in the description. Bye.